for hosting so that we have an opportunity to talk to you about the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program, grant program, some funding opportunities for mitigation projects, the community rating system, and different ways that CRS communities can capitalize on BRIC. So with that, I'll turn my video off and then I'll start my presentation here in just a second. All right, so just to verify, can you all see the presentation and can you hear me?
Can't see the presentation, but I can hear you.
Do you see a speaker's view or nothing at all?
Nothing at all.
How about now?
Okay. Yeah, now it's pulled up.
All right. And do you see speaker's view or the presentation?
Yep, the presentation.
Excellent. All right, thank you very much. And again, good morning, everybody. As I mentioned, today we're going to talk about the National Flood Insurance Program, Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, or BRIC, and grandfathering opportunity, and grant funding opportunities. Why is this doing that? There we go. And grant funding opportunities that may come in handy for you as you move forward in mitigating projects in your community. Now, you know that communities that participate in the National Flood Insurance Program agree to adopt and enforce NFIP requirements to reduce the flood threat. And in exchange for adopting and regulating development, homeowners, business owners, and renters in participating communities have the opportunity to purchase federally backed flood insurance. This insurance offers an alternative disaster assistance to meet the escalating costs of repairing flood damaged buildings and their contents. And the insurance is required for building in high risk areas that have loans from federally backed, federally regulated and insured lenders. This requirement extends to disaster assistance loans from the Small Business Association and determines eligibility for individual assistance when provided as part of a disaster recovery package in a presidentially declared disaster. There are now more than 20,600 participating communities in the National Flood Insurance Program. Now, the NFIP is over 50 years old. Studies demonstrate that the flood hazard mitigation can prevent and minimize the harm that disasters cause to people, their housing and businesses, and the infrastructure of our cities. Something strange just popped up on my computer. I just want to verify that you all are still there.
Yes, we're still here.
Okay, thank you. Apologize for that. And we also have learned that taking steps to inform the public about risks, to adopt protective measures, and to enforce health, safety, and environmental standards can and do minimize human suffering and loss and reduce the economic costs associated with recovery. Loss avoidance studies have been conducted for various mitigation projects, including in Colorado, Iowa, and Missouri, among other states across the nation, and on a variety of mitigation techniques. This result is that implementing higher standards such as those that are implemented by CRS communities that result in discounts to federally backed flood insurance, save lives, reduce cost of recovery from disaster, and minimize, if not prevent, economic disruption to families, businesses, and community revenue streams. The BRIC grant program is for pre-disaster mitigation activities and replaces FEMA's pre-disaster mitigation program. BRIC is different than other HMA projects or programs by setting clear priorities. It is structured to build capacity, increase flexibility, and it streamlines processes. In 2020, FEMA received 980 sub-applications, which is the most sub-applications we've ever received for pre-disaster mitigation. For the 2020 grant cycle, there was $500 million available, and FEMA received requests for about $3.6 billion in applications, with a total proposed project cost that exceed $5.49 billion. In Kansas, there were 5 sub-applicant activities for about $3 million. The local share was only about $452,000. Kansas has the goal to increase the number of communities that participate in the CRS program, and CRS communities are in a good position to capitalize on this funding opportunity. This is a snapshot of the various mitigation grants that FEMA has approved over the last 10 years in the state of Kansas, and includes safe room studies and construction, land and structural acquisition, and minor flood control projects. The federal share of these costs is about 72% of the total net cost. Through BRIC, the type and scale of mitigation project has shifted to include nature-based solutions for mitigation, cross-jurisdictional boundaries, and to promote equity. BRIC funds may be used for capacity and capacity building activities and capability, mitigation projects, management costs, cross-jurisdictional projects, building code enhancements, and nature-based solutions. BRIC's criteria for assessing applications now includes the percentage of population that will directly benefit from the project, working toward the equity aspect, as well as the impacts of the project on socially vulnerable populations. BRIC also categorizes nature-based solution practices by scale and location. For example, neighborhood or site scale for distributed stormwater management practices that manage rainwater where it falls. These practices can often be built into site, corridor, or neighborhood without requiring additional spaces. And this image shows some of the examples where some of those local mitigation practices may be implemented in your community. BRIC also supports the watershed and landscape scale mitigation projects, including interconnected systems for natural areas and open space. These are large-scale practices that require long-term planning and coordination. BRIC's nature-based solutions are a cost-effective approach to keep natural hazards from becoming costly disasters. They weave natural features and processes into communities' landscape through planning, design, and engineering practices, and can be applied to a community's built environment or its natural areas. For example, for land conservation or stormwater retention park or the like. And as I mentioned, BRIC may also help meet social, environmental, and economic goals by promoting equity and transition flood-prone structures into parks and open space and low-income areas that are in or near high-risk flood zones, providing greater access to open space and support public services that were traditionally met with structural or gray infrastructure techniques. Do have to keep in mind that the existing project types detailed in the hazard mitigation plan for a pre-disaster mitigation program are eligible under BRIC, and that projects must meet specific criteria, which Angela will go into in a few more minutes. CRS communities are in a really good position to take advantage of BRIC, and Melissa will talk more about that here in a few minutes. The NFIP's community rating system credits communities for efforts that go beyond the minimum NFIP standards by reducing flood insurance premiums for the community's property owners. CRS discounts on flood insurance premiums range from 5% up to 45% based on CRS credit points that are awarded to each community. The discounts provide an incentive for communities to implement new and protective activities that can help save lives and protect property when a flood event occurs. The CRS provides credit under 19 public information and flood management activities described in the CRS Coordinators Manual. This includes nature-based solutions, open space acquisition, and the like. The current 2017 CRS Manual details credible activities leading to the CRS class ranking and flood insurance discounts. The CRS Coordinators Manual has recently received an addendum, Addendum 21, which will remain in effect until a new edition is released. Both documents can be downloaded from FEMA's website. For more information about CRS, I'd recommend contacting Cheyenne or Steve with the state of Kansas, or you can get in touch with me here at FEMA Region 7's Mitigation Office. Now, looking at BRIC from across the nation, the top 5 project types for federal share requested included elevation, flood control, acquisition, stabilization and restoration, as relocation. Now, comparing BRIC to opportunities for CRS credits, there are several connections that may benefit these communities. And CRS communities, as I said before, are in an excellent position to be highly competitive for BRIC grants. Remember, you don't have to be in the CRS to take advantage of BRIC, and CRS communities are in a good position to be able to resource or leverage BRIC grant funding. Projects can cross jurisdictional boundaries and promote nature-based solutions and equity. And lastly, the opportunity to develop your project and pursue grant funding is now. We anticipate the next funding cycle to open this fall, and Angela will provide a little more information about that. I don't think there's a specific date set, but it's a good time to start looking into those mitigation programs and opportunities and ideas and see what information you can gather in anticipation of the funding cycle opening up here in the near future. With that, I'll stop sharing my presentation, if I can. There you go. And be happy to answer any questions or turn it over to Angela to continue with the session.
Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and save it for the end of the presentations.
All right.
And yeah, we can just go ahead and hand it over to Angela.
All right, thank you, Todd. That was awesome. And good morning, everybody. I appreciate you for letting me come in and speak about BRIC this morning. I am going to do the same as Todd and go ahead and say good morning with my video on, and then I'm going to turn it off so that hopefully I'll have the bandwidth to share the presentation. So, and please add any questions to the chat session as we go through, and we'll address those at the end of the everybody's presentations. So let me go ahead and share, and I'll do the same as Todd here as well. Make sure you're able to see it before I start in. Okay, can we see the presentation?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, and you're on presentation mode?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So let's see. Oh, there we go. Let's stop that. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, Todd already went over. It's the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program, which we as passionately know as BRIC. I'm Angela Durkee, and I'm your Region 7 BRIC coordinator. So the BRIC program is a federally administered program. It serves your states, tribes, territories, and local communities to implement the pre-disaster mitigation projects. It replaced our pre-disaster mitigation program last year. And as the inaugural year, the BRIC grant program allocated $5 million in grants and subsequently received about 1,277 sub-applications, totaling, as Todd noted, about $4 billion in sub-applications. On July 1st of this year, FEMA announced the selections of the sub-applications. And we received a monumental amount. They awarded about $5 million towards BRIC and $2 million towards the flood mitigation assistance. The current presidential administration has taken bold action to help communities better meet the risks posed by disasters and to build long-term resilience. The pre-disaster investments save money and lives. FEMA's BRIC program has already made significant progress, but the demand for this funding far exceeds what the agency has allocated to date. Our country is increasingly being devastated by extreme weather, threatening the safety of communities, the health of entire ecosystems, and the strength of our economy. We're seeing that no part of America, as you know, has been touched by the climate change impacts. We're seeing those stronger hurricanes on the coast. We're seeing the sea level rise on the coast. We're seeing, as you know, the inland flooding from excessive rainfall here in the Midwest, and our droughts and wildfires throughout the West.
Angela,
By utilizing, can you not hear me?
I can hear you fine, but I'm still seeing the first slide.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me see here. Oh, what's going on? Oh, here we go. Okay, better?
There it is. Sorry.
Thank you for letting me know. By utilizing the mitigation mechanisms, together we can lessen that financial impact to our states, our local communities, our tribal partners, and our territorial governments. For every $1 spent, you'll see $6 in future disaster costs being saved. We know this is not an overnight, it's not a simple solution, but we see instead a long-term partnership between FEMA and our states, our local governments, our tribal and our territorial governments to inspire change in our communities. The current presidential administration has taken bold action to help communities better meet these risks posed by disasters and to build long-term resilience. Pre-disaster investments save money and lives. Oops, I'm sorry, I did not move forward. The Biden administration announced that FEMA will double the amount of BRIC funding in 2021 for the BRIC program to the amount of $1 billion, which I know a lot of you already heard. This is great news for us. And in the announcement, it has noted that 40% of the BRIC funding to traditionally underserved areas that often experience the brunt of climate change and extreme weather. Extreme weather does not affect all communities equally, so it is right to dedicate this significant funding specifically to traditionally underserved communities who disproportionately are impacted by climate disasters. And we also encourage President Biden to work with Congress to prioritize natural infrastructure to increase flood resilience and provide communities with additional ecosystem and social benefits, such as improved water quality, wildlife habitat, and recreational opportunities. So who is eligible for the BRIC funding? Currently, all 50 states, the District of Columbia, the US territories may apply for that state and territory funding allocation. The tribal governments that are federally recognized may also apply for the tribal set-aside, and the remaining funds, which are not awarded from the state territory allocation or tribal set-aside, will be included in the national competition. So we're looking at that BRIC development timeline. We know that we've completed almost completed one cycle of the BRIC grant process through the fiscal year 2020 selections of the sub-applications, which were made here on July 1st. That announcement, just to note, it's not an award already, it's a decision on the status of the sub-applications. We are now in the holding period awaiting that fiscal year 2021 notice of funding opportunity, otherwise known as that NOFO, to be released in approximately August of 2021. Prior to the release of the NOFO, we'll begin receiving that summer training series, which is going to be released between that July and August 2021 period. This is a training series that our BRIC team out of headquarters provides, which is really valuable information. It's going to provide you with information such as application pitfalls, technical and qualitative criteria, data and trends that they saw during the fiscal year 2020, and climate and nature-based information, along with other information. The grant application period for fiscal year 2021 will begin approximately September 30th of 2021 and will run through January 31st of 2022. Now, this will be dependent on the state of Kansas and how they want to, and I'll go into that more as I go into Jeannie's information. Eligible applicants must apply for funding using the new FEMA Grants outcome application, which is lovingly known as FEMA GO, and that's the new management system for FMA and BRIC funding. BRIC capability and capacity building activities, otherwise known as C and CB activities, are eligible under the state territory allocation and tribal set-aside, but are not eligible under the national competition. These will enhance the knowledge, the skills, the expertise, and other options of the current workforce to expand or improve the administration of mitigation assistance. They include building code activities, partnership activities, project scoping activities, mitigation planning, and planning-related activities, and other activities. So it's really important to point out that's your building code activities, that's your partnership activities. Now, just as a side note, project scoping was otherwise known as, informally known as, advanced assistance. So it has its own sub-application within FEMA GO, and building code projects will be submitted via the project sub-application. Planning related activities and partnerships will also utilize this plan sub-application. BRIC and nature-based solutions. So Bronson Griscom, the lead on the natural climate solutions working for Conservation International, said we should be focused on primarily three things: protecting the critical places we need for our climate, restoring and expanding the footprint of the natural ecosystems so they can do what they do best, and improving how we manage our working lands. So some examples you can look at are restoration. Land trusts across the country are engaging local communities to conserve the lands that we all treasure, from woodlands and prairies to rivers, lakes, and wetlands. Land conservation protects habitats and the migratory paths for threatened plant and animal species. Soil stabilization. Soil stabilization is defined as a chemical or a physical treatment which increases or maintains the stability of the soil or improves its engineering properties. And bioretention systems. A bioretention system is a shallow depression that is integrated into the landscape, anywhere from parking lots to green spaces. Stormwater is diverted to the bioretention area where vegetation and soil media capture the runoff and filter out pollutants as the water percolates back into the ground. So I'm really passionate about nature-based systems. So if anybody wants to talk about ways to go about that, I know there was a question out there about ways beyond just sewer-based, we can discuss it. So let's go to the next slide. Make sure I don't go over time here. Brick and building codes. FEMA acknowledges the importance of strong building codes at the state, local, tribal, and territorial levels. Building codes were extremely important under the fiscal year 2020 national competition, and actually were in every single project selected. The mandatory statewide, every state had a mandatory statewide adopted building code of either the 2015 or 2018 International Building Code and International Residential Code. So this is going to be, we believe, an extremely important item going forward for the national competition. Accordingly, in the future BRIC grant cycles, FEMA may increase its emphasis on building codes, and building code improvements are only eligible for funding under the state territory allocation and tribal set aside. If you look at this, I've included several examples as far as building codes, existing building codes, or ways to pursue training. I know Melissa's going to go into this further and how you can put together brick and building codes. I'm going to kind of leave that and just let you note the examples on the slide. Brick and mitigation planning. Supplicants are required to have a FEMA approved local or tribal hazard mitigation plan in accordance with 44 CFR Part 201, but the application deadline or at the time of obligation of grant funds for mitigation projects and CNCB activities. By regulation, your states, locals, tribes, and territorial governments are required to update their mitigation plans every 5 years. During the 2020 award process, up to $300,000 of the state and territory allocation and tribal set aside could be used for mitigation planning and planning related activities for applicant. Now note that was in 2020, and note that we've doubled the amount of funding. So we do not know that amount that's going to be in 2021, but I just wanted to give you a general amount that was used for the 2020 awarding. Again, these are not eligible for funding under the national competition. The $300,000 of funds could be distributed to in a limited number of sub-applicants. So you can divide that up. Your applicant, the state of Kansas can divide it up however they see across the sub-applicants. And again, there's multiple examples, and I'll let Melissa use her time to go and how she can use those codes and explain that in greater detail. Oh, sorry, I didn't advance that. My apologies. I'll let you read that over for a second. And then we'll go to BRIC and project scoping activities. Project scoping, again, is, as I noted earlier, is a successor to advanced assistance. It is going to be updated across all our hazard mitigation assistance program. So it's hazard mitigation grant program, the flood mitigation assistance grant program, and the pre-disaster mitigation program. So it's going to be replacing all of those, and you'll now call it project scoping. This change was made to align the name of the activity with the purpose of the project type. Activities previously eligible under advanced assistance will remain eligible, so you're not going to see a change there. Project scoping activities are not subject to any other funding limitations or caps, so as long as they do not exceed the total allocation amount, they are fine. Project scoping activities are not eligible under the national competition. And the reason for their not having a cap was we received a lot of requests that the cap was just not, people were not able to keep it under that cap. They wanted that ability to ask for as much money as possible. So again, you'll see a lot of examples here, the scoping and developing hazard mitigation projects, the conducting hydrologic and hydraulic studies. There are a lot more examples out there that you can find on our FEMA websites, and I'll provide some examples here later in the presentation that you can go back to our FEMA website and look at those. National competition is applicants may send in a limited number of mitigation project sub-applications, each valued up to $50 million federal share to the national competition. Again, this was a fiscal year 2020 number. A project's cumulative score for both qualitative and technical evaluations will determine its priority among all projects considered in the national competition. And I'm going to go ahead and jump to the next slide and kind of give you an overview. Now, when you reach the technical and qualitative, that is assuming that the project or the sub-application has passed the eligibility and completeness programmatic review first. It'll then be scored into the technical criteria and the qualitative criteria. I did not list all your technical and all your qualitative criteria. That would have taken up a couple slides, but I really did want to point out that there's some of the more important ones that came through in the 2020, and that was the building codes. As I noted, all of our projects, the competitive projects that came through came from states that had those state mandatory building codes. We also saw a lot of projects that were incorporating nature-based solutions. So I believe it was 18 out of 22 had a nature-based solution within the project. We saw mitigating risk in a lot of our projects, small impoverished communities, infrastructure projects, the large projects that you saw partnerships, you saw infrastructure, qualitative criteria, the population that was impacted, that risk reduction, that resiliency, effectiveness. Those are really important, and we saw that being important coming out. I'm looking forward to seeing that webinar that they're going to, the headquarters is going to roll out. That gives us a lot of feedback as far as the 2020 projects, just so, and that's going to be available to everybody, as I noted before, to give us some more feedback as to how they rated those technical and qualitative criteria. And I think that'll be a good source for everybody. Your management costs, this is one that I like to put in here because I think a lot of people and a lot of our sub-applicants and our applicants overlook this. And management costs are paid out at 100% cost share to our applicants and sub-applicants. Applicants may apply for the management costs up to 10% of the total BRIC grant application for management of the award and all selected sub-awards. Sub-applicants may apply for up to 5% of the total cost of their CNCB activity or mitigation project sub-application to manage the proposed sub-award activities. This can be any indirect costs, any direct administrative costs, any other administrative expenses that are reasonably incurred in administrating the award or sub-award. There's a huge list out there. You can contact me and I can kind of guide you along to what's available or what can be incurred and what's not incurred. Or any of our team can definitely help out, but it's money that is available to you and your sub-applicants that, you know, it's 100%. So definitely try for it if you can, and don't miss out. The BRIC non-financial direct a technical assistance grant awards, these communities interested in applying for this award must submit a letter of interest to their applicant agency. Each applicant will then choose one community to move forward in the selection process. In fiscal year 2028, communities were chosen to receive the non-financial direct technical assistance. The compelling needs are on listed here. They were tribal entities, small impoverished communities, did not receive an advanced assistance award over the past 5 years. So this is something to consider. You'll need to, there's a little bit of work into it on putting the letter of interest together. So it's something you can definitely consider and good to discuss with your state. Flood mitigation assistance. This is your competitive grant program that applies funding for eliminating repetitive flood damage. FEMA chooses recipients based on the applicant's ranking of the project and the eligibility and cost effectiveness of the project, and requires your states, locals, tribals, and territorial governments to develop and adopt hazard mitigation plans as a condition of receiving certain types of non-emergency disaster assistance. We obviously can't stop the rain from coming. We can't build levees everywhere. The only solution here is to maximize how the water gets absorbed through plantings and other green infrastructure, and to reduce the sediment going into our tributaries so the water can leave. The state can only help communities that don't have the know-how of their staff to plan better. So flood resiliency will be a boost to the economy and that benefits everybody. As a community, you cannot make the flood not happen, but you can lower the impact. We really think this is a great option, and the funding has been raised for this year. So we would love to see more people apply for these flood mitigation assistance grants. So the next two slides, Jeannie was not able to be here today from Kansas, so I'm going to go over her information real quick. And if you have any questions, she would be, just reach out to her, and I have her information at the end of the presentation. So for the Kansas BRIC procedures, upon receipt of the NOFO from FEMA, Kansas CADEM will notify all emergency managers that they are accepting letters of interest for the new BRIC cycle. So we get that NOFO around August, or beginning of August. She's going to send out to the emergency managers. The deadline is normally 1 month after CADEM sends that initial email. All letters of interest are reviewed and requests are made to eligible entities to apply through FEMA GO. And then the deadline for applications in FEMA GO are December 31st. Between December 31st and submission date to FEMA, CADEM staff are working to get the State Historical Preservation and the Kansas Department of Wildlife, Parks and Tourism reviews in the file. In addition, staff are reviewing the applications and asking for more clarification, rewrites, additional forms, et cetera, whatever they need. No new applications will be accepted after December 31st, and on or before the date FEMA specifies, all applications are submitted for potential funding. So it would be about the end of January is our required date. So how to apply in FEMA GO? All BRIC grants must be applied for using FEMA Grants Outcome, or FEMA GO, which is the development of FEMA GO is a multi-year effort to modernize and transformize the way FEMA conducts grants management. So that being said, FEMA GO is still a work in project in the works. We are still trying to churn out those fiscal year 2020 projects and have some work to go on that. If you're a part of that, you'll understand. And the minute we get out that NOFO and allow those fiscal year 2021 applications to start coming in, hopefully we'll have it a lot more synchronized, and it'll be a better piece of work than it was last year. I'm sure it will be. And our team has been wonderful at headquarters to work with everyone and make it something that, you know, is understandable and easy to work with. So every year it's going to get better. We hope that, September 30th, it'll be open and you could start applying, putting your applications in. And we assume that right at the end of January, it'll be closed around 3 p.m., either that January 28th, I'm going to assume, or the January 31st date. And there's some programs, some more materials. I believe Cheyenne will send out I'll Adobe this and send it out, and you can have this later to go ahead and have these. These are all available on our FEMA site, and you can download this material. So it'll be available for you at a later date. Other resources as well. And you can also sign up here at the bottom on the BRIC and HMA email update. So as things come out from headquarters and from our region, we're happy to send those to you right away, and they'll be hot off your fingertips. I am Angela Durkee, as you know, and this is, we have a team email, and if you have any questions, have anything you want to follow up on, that is the email to send it to, and it'll come, somebody, if I don't get it right away, somebody else will direct it to me. And then, Jeannie, and that is her email. So that is all I have. Cheyenne, back to you.
Thank you, Angela. Excellent presentation. There's a number of questions in there I've tried to address regarding some of the CRS aspects. And I see there's some questions about BRIC that maybe we can address here in a few minutes.
Sure, I'll start working on those.
Just want to let everybody know that Angela will be working through that as we go through the next presentation with Melissa. Cheyenne, is there anything that you'd like to add?
Nope, I think we're good to go for Melissa.
Well, good morning, everybody. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. I am going to switch over to share screen. And just to confirm, my presentation is up?
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, good morning, everybody. It is always so wonderful to have us gather, and everybody is so looking forward to the opportunity to physically be back together at some point, but we greatly appreciate you signing on for today's webinar. I am going to talk to you about FEMA's Community Rating System program, but I'm not going to cover the program all in itself. It's just going to be a little bits and pieces and how it has the potential to tie into project scoping with the BRIC funding opportunity. As I shared, Melissa Mitchell, I am the CRS specialist for FEMA Region 7. Here's my contact information. While we move forward with CRS, your really great resources, FEMA Region 7, the state, and myself, we are all here to support you in your CRS interest, or if you're an existing CRS community, your growth in this program as well.
Sorry, Melissa, it's still on the first slide and it's not full screen.
So I've got it advancing on my side. Let me switch real fast. Yeah, I have it advancing on mine. Let me see.
Okay, now I see it advancing, but it's
It's
just,
it's not the full screen.
right.
Hang on one second. Let me push some buttons.
Okay, now it looks better.
All
yeah,
right.
Yeah, there we go.
Hey, let's start on over. CRS and BRIC, we're bridging these two together. And this is my contact information, email, phone, text, whatever's easiest for you. I'm pretty accessible. And I am going to reference crsresources.org towards the end of this presentation. It's a wonderful resource just to get a little acclimated with CRS, some guidance, some shortcuts, some sample material. So FEMA's Community Rating System Program, CRS, it is a FEMA program. It is in support of the National Flood Insurance Program. It is voluntary, which means if you participate in the NFIP, you can look at participating in the CRS program. The goal of the CRS program is to fully support the NFIP. We are looking at communities that are going above the minimum requirements of the NFIP, and therefore they are supporting higher regulatory standards, practices, and enforcement, which ultimately results in more resilient communities and better floodplain management. Now we're going to tie together BRIC with CRS, and I will say this is new to us. So while we go through Angela's presentations, I jotted down quite a few notes, but you're going to see where things connect in regards to what you guys are looking at for project scoping and potential credit that would help either come into the CRS program or enhance credit that you have with us already. So the goal of the NFIP and the CRS program, it's three simple goals that you see quite often with us: reduce and avoid flood damage to insurable properties, that's residential, non-residential. We're here to support the NFIP and to support a stronger comprehensive floodplain management program. The CRS manual itself is very big. It's well over 600 pages. Don't expect you to know the in and outs of everything, but really just how to navigate it. There are 4 series, the 300, 400, 500, and 600. Within those series, there's 19 activities and 94 elements. Elements are what we reference for the CRS credit and credit criteria. Now I'm going to tie back to some of Angela's slides in regards to possible project scoping. So under infrastructure projects in the CRS CRS manual, activity 530 for flood protection is where you would see credit for mitigation actions, retrofitting techniques, flood control projects, structural flood control projects. This could be elevating structures. This could really get into flood control projects where we're able to show what the risk was before the project and that the risk was eliminated with your mitigation action. Mitigation itself is activity 510, floodplain management. Mitigation plans. This is a big thing for almost all of our communities. We score really well in this activity for CRS credit. And another mitigation activities under activity 520 is for acquisition and demolition of properties that have been damaged. So essentially we are removing the structure from the parcel, and the parcel is being deed restricted for open space, which means that we're not going to allow any development. It's going to stay green space, which will allow the floodplain to do what it needs to do when the water comes in and the water moves out without putting a risk to structure or life. When we talk about nature-based solutions, this one really opens up the door to quite a few things. Activity 420 for open space preservation is just that. That is the green space within your regulatory special flood hazard area that remains open and natural, either low to no maintenance. We like to look at park and recreation use lands as well. Any properties that have been demolished, and those are now deed restricted for open space, that's what we're looking at in activity 420. Also, when we talk about nature-based solutions, Angela touched base a little bit on this with bioretention. There is really good credit in activity 450 on stormwater management side for regulations that are either watershed-based or all communities based, but also erosion control management, bioretentions, rain gardens. There's really great credit here in activity 450. She also touched base on building codes for the CRS program. While you grow in the CRS program, for every 500 points that's verified, the community receives an additional 5% discount. So we go from 5% to 45% in savings to your policy holders. For communities that are a CRS class 6 or class 5 or higher, so we're getting in the higher portion of the discount, they must participate in the B6 program, which is the Building Code Effectiveness Grading Schedule. And what that means is that you have building codes that are adopted within 6 years of the current series. So that would be the 2021 ICC set or the 2018 ICC set. So when we tie back to the building codes, you do receive credit in the CRS program if you are in the 2021 or 2018 series. And then that does make you eligible to grow your CRS discount by maintaining your building codes and having an adoption process in place so that maybe every 6 years you're adopting either the newest or the past series to keep you updated on the building code side. And as I shared, when we look at your CRS class 6 and class 5 communities, this is a trend that we're starting to see in Region 7 where our CRS class 7 communities are moving into our 6s, and we have some of our class 6 communities moving into our class 5s. So while we grow in the program, building codes, your plan review, your inspection process, it does tie into the CRS program. FEMA supports the building codes and being updated on the most current building, because again, we're looking at resiliency, more current practice, current standards. So building codes are pretty well rated on the CRS program side too. And then activity 430 in and itself has a very long laundry list of higher regulatory standards that if a community is implementing them or looking to implement them, there is a lot of credit here for really focusing on a more resilient standard in regards to allowing development within your floodplain. So as I shared, our program, for every 500 points that's verified, we add an additional 5%. In all of the CRS program, we have one CRS Class 7, which is in Northern California, and they are the only ones that hold this 45% discount. Now, as you can see on this chart, we have special flood hazard area, non-special flood hazard area, and PRP, which is the preferred risk policy. October of this year, the preferred risk policies will now be eligible to receive your CRS discount. So you're going to see for your communities, we usually have policyholders in all three columns, but this is the first time that the preferred risk policies are going to be eligible for your CRS discounts. So that's pretty exciting that we're being able to share the community's hard work and effort, that it's reaching everybody that's carrying insurance in regards to the NFIP. Now for the CRS itself in the state of Kansas, we have 40 communities that participate in the CRS program, and they go all the way back to the start of it. We have 2 new communities that are coming online for us this year, and I'm pretty excited to announce that the city of Lenexa has moved from a CRS Class 7 to the first CRS Class 5 in the state of Kansas. That's pretty exciting for us. But we are currently at 2021, we've got 42 Kansas communities and growing. Now, if you are interested in the CRS program, I know I'm just kind of touching base a little bit on it, but if you'd like to really go into some detail or have any questions, how to get started or what it looks like credit-wise, or what it looks like really just maintaining in the program, please reach out to me. I'm happy to schedule some time with you and get you going on all that information. But the biggest thing that we can provide to you is this what if document, which is what we're looking at right now. This is just an example. But what it shows is what the CRS class would be for that community and how that discount is applied. Now, this information is updated twice a year. So I'm happy to run this for you at any time. But you'll see, for example, this CRS Class 7 community has a total of 8,000, a little over 8,000 policies. 4,800 of those are in their floodplain, 2,600 of those are in their X zone, and 556 of those are in their PRP. So you're seeing their participation alone is a little over $500,000 a year. The CRS program is a 5-year program. So if you take $500,000 per year, you multiply it by 5, what you guys are doing in regards to your practices and your higher regulatory standards are really beneficial to savings that are going back to your community and your policy holders. You know, this is money that goes back to your gas station, your grocery stores, property taxes, shopping locally. So we're always very excited to show you where the money is. Now, I will say this, the program itself, it is up to interpretation. We have many communities that are in the program that may have one or no flood insurance policies, and they use this program as an opportunity just to ensure that they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's in regards to the NFIP, their ordinances, their practices. So it's really up to interpretation on the value of the program. Every community looks at it very differently, but I will say at the end of the day, when we're looking at enforcement and practices, again, it's a really great program just to help ensure that you're on top of your floodplain management, staffing is comfortable with the regulations. If you are low to no development in your floodplain, when something does come in your CRS community, you're already engaged in being up to date with your practices and your mapping and the flow of everything. So it's up to everybody's interpretation, the value of the program. I'm obviously an advocate for it. Even if you have no policies, it is a great way just to help ensure that you're enforcing what you've got in place, either from the state perspective, the NFIP perspective, and your local regulations. If you're interested in this what if document that shows your current policy count and your discount, please shoot me an email and I'll get that turned over to you by the end of the day. As I mentioned earlier, CRSresources.org is our current hub. We are working to navigate more information onto FEMA's website, but as it stands right now, CRSresources.org is where ISO is updating guidance, sample material, reference, and training videos. So you can download the 2017 CRS manual. You can also access the 2021 CRS Addendum. These two now go hand in hand. So you're going to hear me reference both of those when we talk CRS as a whole in general. But as Angela mentioned, when you're looking at your project scoping and we're looking at how it might tie into CRS credit, within the CRS manual, there is a section for credit criteria. When you go to the credit criteria, that tells you what we are looking at from a CRS perspective. So always remember the CRS program is for going above minimum standards. So when you're looking at project scoping, go back and reference the CRS manual to see what does that mean in regards to getting CRS credit, because there's going to be a next tier of enforcement that we're looking to verify, higher standards in enforcement. So the manuals can be downloaded on this website. When you go, as I mentioned, the series 300, 400, 500, and 600, there's guidance, sample material there as well. But I would really encourage you guys to spend a little bit of time on the training and videos. We do offer 1-hour webinars throughout the year that are CRS specific. And there's also some great YouTube training videos that are on there as well, just to get you going, or a quick refresher for elevation certificates, for example. So just a really great resource. It's updated constantly. We really do our best to keep everything updated so you don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel at any point. This concludes this little summary of CRS and tying it into BRIC. Ultimately, at the end of the day, while you're looking at project scoping for the BRIC program, please hop into the manual, reference the CRS criteria, and make sure those are things that fit for you if you're interested in using them for CRS credit, because there's a lot of things we are looking to verify enforcement, verify that it's been adopted, verify the practice of it, and then verify that it did indeed reduce risk. So we're looking at those from that perspective, and the credit criteria would then tie into your project scoping on the BRIC side. I'm going to switch out of here to see if we've got any questions that have popped up in the chat side. But most definitely, if you'd like to learn more about CRS or any questions, or even the what if document to show you how the discount breaks down, please don't hesitate to contact me.
Oh, thank you, Melissa and Angela and Todd. Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to pull up the screen to share all of our contact information. We do appreciate you all being here. If you would like a copy of these slides or any of the resources that we talked about today, or if you'd like a certificate for credit, then please let me know. Just send me an email and I'll be happy to get that out to you. Oops. Okay, so we do have some questions in the chat. We have just a couple of minutes left here. I guess I will go back up and start with Todd. Okay, so Steve Samuelson asked, the green solutions all seem to be urban stormwater focused. Are there any that work better for smaller, more rural communities?
Right, and I did post a response to that in the chat, but just to do a quick summary, and just so you know, power went out here briefly for a moment ago, so I lost connectivity and all of the chat and all the history related to some of the discussion. So I apologize if I'm missing an aspect of the question that maybe is just detailed on there. But that is a priority for FEMA, and part of the reason why we're here today is to help promote Kansas communities and all of our Region 7 communities in our 4 states to apply for BRIC grants. We felt that our region was underrepresented in the grant application process this last round, and we're hoping that this will help encourage more communities to apply for BRIC grants and implement greater mitigation actions and activities.
Great. Were there any phased projects that were approved in the first cycle of BRIC? If so, can you describe a few of them?
I'll defer to our grant folks who would manage the grant application process and would know the details about what applications came in.
Hey, everybody, this is Kirsty Morgan. I'm the BRIC supervisor with FEMA's HMA branch. I just went through all the selected projects, and unfortunately, the information we have is just the titles from all the states and tribes and territories that applied. And I only found one project that actually had in its title phased project, and it was a large infrastructure project. So at this point, we're gonna have to get more information about the phased projects, but pretty big bet that if it's a larger infrastructure project, it's gonna be phased.
Okay, thank you, Kirsty.
You're welcome.
What was the weight of building codes in ranking the BRIC applications?
Oh, okay, I'll go again. So I put that in the chat as well. And I put the link. You can see that it's a pretty big weight. I'm gonna have to scroll up to find what I put there. I think it was, okay, so for the state level building codes, it was 20 points and then 15 on the BSEGS ratings. So it's a big chunk for sure.
Sorry, I lost my place here. It looks like we're about out of time, actually. So if you do have any questions, just let me know. I'd be happy to put you in touch with anyone here or the state hazard mitigation officer. Just let me know. And again, please send me an email if you want a certificate or any of the other things that we discussed here today. We really appreciate you joining us, and we hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Cheyenne.
Thank you.